In this video, we will provide more detailed instructions related to Step 3 of the Academic Integrity Investigation process, as outlined in the Student Code of Conduct Academic Integrity Policy. Again, we're using the flowchart for faculty members as a reference point for these videos. If you don't yet have a copy, simply go to Lakehead's Student Conduct webpage and download the flowchart from the Resources tab. If we zoom in on Step 3 from the flowchart, you can see this step is to meet with the student to discuss the alleged academic misconduct. At the meeting, you'll begin filling out Form 3, which is the incident report for breach of academic integrity. Like the other templates, Form 3 can be downloaded from the Resources section of the Student Conduct webpage. Once you've downloaded Form 3 and open it up in Microsoft Word, you can see that this document is set up to be a place to keep all of your meeting notes and comments and information about the case. You'll notice that this is a confidential document and is intended for internal use only. That is to say, that it only gets sent to student affairs and not to the student. Let's briefly go through each of the sections in Form 3 now, starting with this first box, where you would indicate if other students were involved in the incident. In most cases, your answer will be no, so double-click and check off the no box. But if you select yes, you would also list the other names of the students involved in the case. And as a quick side note, this does not mean that you interviewed them as a group. Even in cases involving multiple students, each student must be investigated individually, and their cases kept separate and confidential. Moving on to the second box, where you would indicate the type of violation, let's use the example of a student cheating this time, and as you see, you need to be more specific. In most cases of cheating, the actual violation will either be possession or use of unauthorized materials, or unauthorized collaboration or communication. Let's say we found two students submitted the exact same answer on a test. We'd select unauthorized collaboration or communication. And then we'd also indicate that the incident occurred during coursework because it's not a final exam. And also, if you're investigating, this means that the student will not have a prior breach on record. The only time this would be a yes is if it was a dean filling out this form. And then you'd move on to entering in the date that you met with the student, and you'd also indicate who attended the meeting. Obviously, you and the student, but this is also where you would specify if a support person joined them or not, and if so, who was it? Some students will bring a support person with them to the meeting because it's a pretty stressful process, but they are required to tell you this ahead of time. Often the support person will be the ombudsperson or their international student advisor, for example, but it could be a family member or friend as well. The role of the support person is to simply observe. They're not there to speak on behalf of the student, ask questions, or participate. They're merely there as a third-party observer. Now, sometimes instructors don't feel comfortable having one-on-one meetings with the student as well, even with the acknowledged power imbalance. And a support person can actually fulfill a dual purpose and can ensure both parties feel a bit more at ease. If the student isn't bringing a support person, and based on past interactions you have reason to be concerned about things like false accusations or your safety, even though it's not specified in the code, you could always ask the program chair to sit in as an observer. However, I would suggest best practice is to phrase this as more of a question to the student, asking their permission to have this person join the meeting and explain why, in order to avoid the student feeling like they're outnumbered or being put in an unfair situation. On the second page, you'll include notes about the meeting and how the student responded. You'll specifically want to mention if the student admitted to or acknowledged the violation, if it was unintentional or intentional, why they did it, and if they showed any remorse or willingness to learn from their mistakes. Keep in mind that this is the section of information that the dean will be referring to specifically at a future point in time if the student has a second incident or repeat offense, so try to be fairly thorough in this section. Next, we have the findings box, where you indicate whether you are deciding to uphold or dismiss the allegation based on the preponderance of evidence. Preponderance of evidence is just another way of saying the balance of probabilities, which is legal terminology to explain the standard of proof required to make a decision one way or another in civil lawsuits and in these types of cases. Another way of phrasing the balance of probabilities is it's more likely than not, or there is a greater than 50% chance that the student did or did not violate the code. You do not need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt or be 100% absolutely certain. So let's say in this case, I reviewed the information, met with the student, asked them some questions, gave them a chance to respond, and they denied cheating on the test. But based on the fact that they had the exact same answer, word for word, as another student, I could conclude that it's more likely than not that the student did indeed communicate or collaborate on the test in question, which let's say in this hypothetical situation was online, and we assume that the students shared an answer by either email or text. So I would select upheld here, and then move on to deciding upon a fair sanction. For this last step, the first thing you'll notice about the list of sanctions is that they are separated into 3 different groupings. You got 1, 2, and 3. The first set of sanctions are within your purview to implement with no additional approval. If you move beyond the first level and into the second or third group, it would require either the approval of the dean or the approval of the provost and president. At this stage, faculty will often reach out to the Student Conduct Office looking for some guidance in deciding upon a sanction. So in response to these inquiries, our office has put together a sanction decision tool that you can refer to. It too is located on the Student Conduct Resources page and is essentially a matrix built off of the last 2 years of historical data from the Student Conduct database and shows you the range of sanctions. Here we have sanctions low, medium, and high that other instructors have implemented based on the violation type. So we have violation types grouped into plagiarism types, cheating, and other. So we encourage you to take a look at this tool, and for the purpose of this demo video, let's continue using the example of cheating or unauthorized collaboration. If we were to read through the definitions of these 3 types of cheating, minor, moderate, and major, we can see that unauthorized collaboration and use of other resources during online tests and exams falls under the moderate category, and we could see also that the typical range of sanctions instructors have implemented have ranged from 0 on the question or questions, to a reduced grade on the exam or course, to a 0 on the exam or test in question. So if we go back to the example that we're using in this demo video, let's say that we really believe that the student just collaborated on the one specific question, and we don't want to give them a 0 on the whole test. We would indicate mark of 0 on the piece of academic work here by clicking this box. And because this is typically reserved for students who get 0 on a test or an exam, you'd be more specific and you can just add a line saying 0 on question 3 only. Down below, you'd add in justification for a reason why you chose this type of sanction, and then you would finish off the form with your contact information before sending it off to the manager of student conduct. That concludes video 3 for the academic integrity investigation process. For more in-depth commentary and instructions on step 4, please refer to the final video in this series. And as always, if you have any questions or need support at any point in time, please do not hesitate to contact the Student Conduct Office.